Hey everybody, my name is Nick Ravel, and I play viola, and I created DragonScales, my 3-octave scale and arpeggio audio play-along system for violin, viola, and cello. If you don't know about it, I'll leave a link in the description to a video telling you how to get it and how to use it. And if you do know it, you're probably here for the DragonScales tutorial series. So this is the 4th in the series. So far we've covered the basics, major and minor scales. We've covered the advanced scales and the arpeggios. And today we're going to get creative with the audio play-alongs. Now I have 2 Grammy nominations, multiple composition awards, and a lot of albums. Humble brag, you know. But I use DragonScales all the time, and I find it incredibly effective for targeting pitch and rhythm. So I'm offering it up, putting it out to the world, and I hope they're useful for you as well. Today, why don't we colenyo that like button, subscribe, and let's jump right in. Today, I'm offering not only this video, but also a supplemental sheet music guide that goes along with all the topics I'll be covering in this video. And I'm offering it for violin, viola, and cello. I'll leave links in the description as everything else. And it's about 6 pages long, and I'm gonna offer it for free. There's a lot of ideas and concepts in this video, and I want you to be able to use them for your own practice. And I figured sheet music would be an easy way to do that. So it's free, but I'm gonna leave a little donate button. There's a PayPal link and a donor box link. If you feel moved to support me in creating this content, I would be grateful. But it is free, use it how you want to. So before we jump in, I have to say that I find scales to be pretty intense in that we're trying to combine pitch, rhythm, use our body well, possibly think of a musical sound to use all at once. It's a lot. And if you're just starting your day, you haven't played yet, maybe you need a little warm up first. So let's check out our sheet music. This is the guide. This is the viola version. Everything in here will reference the C major audio play-along, but a lot of these concepts can be applied to any of the other play-alongs as well. So one of the things I love to start with is open strings. I find that I can connect with my bow, I can connect with my body. I'm really not distracted by intonation. The intonation for me is the thing that gets me really tight, gets me impatient, and possibly frustrated. So I'm going to put the audio, the DragonScales audio on, and I'm just going to play open strings while it cycles up through. And what I like about this is, as you'll hear, you can get to know the intervals between the root and the notes of the scale. You can, in that way, sort of almost like tune your sound to each one in a musical way, because some of the notes will create dissonance and tension. Tension in the sound, not your body. If you're feeling tension in your body, you should step away and take a breath and figure out how to play that tension in the sound without using too much force in your body. So here's how this sounds. It goes on and on. You can do this as long as you want. I really love that kind of warm-up. Another thing that I find is really important is to warm up my sense of pitch. Not only in my left hand, which we'll get to later, but my internal sense of pitch. And I find that the best way to do that is to sing. Now I talked a little bit about singing in the last video, and I sang some stuff on Blork, which was maybe a bad decision. But today I'm going to sing just 1 octave of this scale on the finger numbers that I would use to play those notes as I would play the scale. So here's how that sounds like. 0, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can switch octaves when you want. If you have a really big range, you can practice singing with a tuner. That's great pitch practice. And so now already just doing that little bit of singing, I feel so much more connected to my internal sense of pitch, which when we put our left hand on the instrument, will immediately benefit from. So if you're still not feeling quite warmed up at this point, maybe 3 octaves is a lot to start. Just do 1 octave. So I'm not going to demo it, but here on the 3rd line, play only 1 octave with the audio play along and then restart the octave while the audio ascends. So you can see here, the playing on the top line goes back down while the audio continues up. And in that way, you can still practice your pitch, you can still practice your bow, you can still practice your sound, but you're not sort of necessarily flailing all about your instrument. If you're ready to move on, then you move on when you're ready. After that, I like to do sort of a rhythmic warm-up. So this here at the bottom, the second half of the page, is the actual progression of rhythms in the play-along, in the major and minor play-along. In the play-along, it extends to where each rhythm gets a whole up and down the scale, 3 octaves. But here we're going to just sort of cycle through the rhythms as the half notes in the play-along happen. And this one is actually really tricky, I find. It's really good practice to feel pulse and then rhythm. So here's what this sounds like. Gone are the days of arguing with your chamber music buddies who was late and who was early. With this practice, you'll have perfect rhythm in no time. Okay, next up, now that we're super warmed up, we can actually play through our whole scale. And one of the, of course you can just play along with the audio as is sort of intended, but one way to get creative with it is to play in intervals. And an interval, if you don't know what that is, it's a distance between 2 notes. And they all have specific names. So when you play in unison, you're playing the same exact notes. When you're playing in seconds, you're starting either a note or a note above or below the play along. And what happens when you play a scale using all the notes of the major scale, but you start on different notes, is you end up getting into the modes. And modes are really cool because they have a completely different sound than just the regular major scale. And believe it or not, major scale is called Ionian. It is a mode. It's the mode that we're most familiar with. And this is the Dorian mode. It's when you start on the second. But I haven't changed any of the notes. They're still in the key of C. Phrygian is when we start on the 3rd note of the scale, and it sounds like this. It starts out with a half step, which is pretty unique, and it sounds really interesting. So all of these notes that you can start on create modes. And if you're really practicing the modes, you'll start to get a flavor, a sense for how those modes work on their own. If you're going to play in diatonic intervals, meaning intervals with the audio play along, but only using notes within the scale, you're probably not going to know you're in a mode because our ears are so drawn to the major scale sound that's coming from the play along that you'll default to hearing, in this case, C as the tonic. But if you're going to practice modes on your own, in D Dorian, you might actually hear D as the root, and that would be a good thing because that's a proper tonic for that scale. So just to give you a little sense of what this sounds like playing in diatonic intervals, we're going to start on different notes of the scale, but stick to the notes of the key. So we already know unison. I'll start on seconds. frets. Etc., etc. You can determine how you want to use this practice. I've just laid out all of the modes and the intervals here. You can cycle through them, you can pick one, up to you. And that's how you can practice and think about the diatonic modes. Now, even when you're in a second, for example, or a seventh, something very dissonant, there's still degrees. There's the major second, which is the more gravelly one, and there's the minor second, which is the really sharp, sour sounding one. So again, just like when we were playing the open string while the audio goes up and down, we can use the tension in the sound to create a musical experience. Not only for maybe possibly in the end, in a concert, the audience, but for you, yourself, as you're playing. That's very important that you have a musical experience as well. And it is possible to do that in a scale practice situation. After diatonic intervals, I thought, let's play in parallel intervals. Parallel intervals means that we're not sticking to the notes of the key. Sometimes you can call this bitonal. You're going to see a lot more accidentals, sharps and flats. So for example, let's do major thirds. You're going to notice that your sense of tonic is very strange. It's going to be warped or gone. And what I mean by that is because there's two scales going on, in this case, there's the C major on the bottom and the E major on the top, there's technically two tonics happening at the same time. And you, as the player or the listener, both, I suppose, can determine which one you want to feel and hear as tonic. So usually in my experience, when I'm playing in this way, the lower note, in this case, the audio play along, is the tonic, and I'm just supporting that tonic in a different key. But you can feel and hear how it makes most sense to you. So here's a little demo of major thirds. Okay, so that's major thirds. And what I should mention also about the play-alongs is that the audio is tuned in equal temperament, meaning it's the same tuning as pianos, it's the same tuning as most digital instruments. And there's a lot of musicians that don't like that. My theory is that starting with equal temperament prepares you to be playing with piano. It prepares you to be playing with basically a lot of different kinds of instruments, which you can then navigate away from in the moment if you'd like. I find it an easier place to start from than tuning to a more just intonation where you're tuning your note to the harmonics of the lowest note in the stack, and then moving towards equal temperament. I find that more difficult. So what I like about this interval practice is you can tune in whatever way you want. You're working on the same interval for every note. And that way, you can hear the interval as you'd like. So those are just a couple examples of the parallel intervals. There's also a sheet at the end of this that shows you all of the intervals here at the top. And at the bottom, it tells you how to get to the modes starting on the same note, which is going to, again, as we discussed, involve more accidentals. And you're not going to just be able to stay in the same key. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense to you. Next up is playing with rhythms and notes. We've checked out the notes, we've checked out the rhythms, we're going to put them together now. And this is where it starts getting more difficult. So the top two lines is the same as the first page when we played through the cycle of rhythms, except instead of playing it on the same note, we're going to do it on the notes of the scale. And that's a lot more tricky because now you have to deal with the intonation as well. So you see how this stuff kind of builds on itself. I'm not going to demo that. It's pretty self-explanatory. The next section is playing with rests. Rests, I think us string players often get into trouble with rests because we think of them sometimes as rests, like it's time to rest. No, it's very active. If you lose your sense of pulse in a rest or you stop counting, you're done. So it's important to maintain a sense of flow, a sense of time, a sense of tempo, so that your body is ready to come in with the type of sound that you want. A lot of times we hit the note after the rest and we go, oh, right, like here I am. It's too late, you've already made the sound. Everybody knows you weren't paying attention. So here are just some basic examples of things you can do. I'm not really gonna demo these, but this is like, in my opinion, a real life situation when you either enter really strong after a rest or you enter really quietly. And I find that both require different types of preparation during those rests. So it's a really challenging practice to get the timing right and the sound that you want. Also thinking about the intonation. You can do this in unison as shown here with the audio play along, or do it in an interval. So you start to be able to combine these various exercises. Playing with sort of rhythms, like playing on weak beats, gives you the best of both worlds in terms of rests and intervals. Let me show you what I mean. If I do this one here, playing on the weak beats, half the note will be in unison, half the note will be in an interval, and that's really important practice. And that's just one exercise. There's a whole bunch of variations here. You can come up with your own. Playing on the subdivisions, playing on smaller subdivisions, playing on different smaller subdivisions, etc., etc. I'm not going to play these. You have at it. You figure it out and make it your own. Last but not least is playing patterns. At a certain point, we get warmed up. We're ready to play faster music. What I love about the DragonScales audio is that it has a range of speeds, right? We start slow with the half notes. And if you're feeling warmed up, that allows you to take the time to fill in those half notes with your own patterns. And then you're combining a drone, which we sometimes put on to tune music with movement, where the drone actually moves. And you can create a sense of harmony with that. You can fill in Honestly, you can fill in the notes however you want to. In this case, I've decided let's put an arpeggio on every single note, starting from the note in the audio play along. If you missed the last video, Arpeggios, that's a good, check that out, because I talk about the inversions. I talk about these Roman numeral notations and how to read them, the difference between the capital and the lowercase. What is that little 6 there? And I cover all of that. So here's just a little example of the top line. This is diatonic root position arpeggios, starting, in this case, on C, or the root. Etc., etc. There are 2 inversions in this exercise that you can do as well. And this is just starting on the root. You can expand it to start on other notes if you'd like. Oops, sorry about that. Other patterns include broken ascending thirds, broken descending thirds, ascending groups of 3, descending groups of 3. It's all in here. Make up your own patterns. Go nuts, go wild, and share them with me. I'd love to hear what you guys are doing. So there is your cheat sheet at the end of this, and that brings us to the end of our video. So thank you so much for being here. Again, I will leave links to many things in the description, including example songs for each mode, these 3 supplemental sheet music guides that go along with this video that you can use for free. And I'll leave a couple donate buttons if you feel moved to support me in creating this content. I would be so grateful. And thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear from you. How are you using DragonScales? How do you think this guide is going to help you? Has it helped you? Have you done it and now you're returning and you want to leave some feedback? I want to hear all about it. So tell me what your experience is like. And I will say that most of these videos that I've made so far have been generated by your feedback. And so I will listen and I will create more content depending on what you need. In fact, I'm grateful for your feedback because I now get to use this. Like I'm making it for you, but I also get to use it. So I'm benefiting. So I really like this process. And I can't thank you enough for supporting me, for being here, for colenyoing that like button and subscribing. And I'll say thanks so much for watching and happy practicing.